Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk a bit about recursive components in React. It's something that I don't use a lot and I don't see a lot of talk about it, but I wanted to make this quick video because I was coding for my startup and I happened to need to use recursive components in order to do whatever I was trying to do. And what I was trying to do was sort of make this comment structure. So if you look at this website, I was sort of trying to emulate what they have here. And as you can see, they have nested comments, sort of similar to Reddit. And it's a pretty simple structure of doing things. Pretty much you just have a bunch of posts, and each post might contain other posts that have posts inside of them, and so on. And you can do things like hide all the children, etc., etc. So I wanted to give this a shot on my site. And you can see here I have a very decent proof of concept going on. Obviously everything will be completely restyled, but I just want to get the functionality up and going, and I'm going to show you guys in this video how I did the recursive part of it. So first let's take a look at the data that I was getting. Pretty much the object that I'm expecting back from the backend is similar to this mock object I made just to start working on the front end. Essentially, the top level object will return an array of posts, and each one of these posts will have an ID, the amount of children below it, the content, the date it was created, a Unix timestamp, the author of the post, and then an array containing the replies. And the replies array is just going to be an array of post objects, just like the first one was, that could also have its own replies. So essentially, the data sort of is the exact same structure, just nested within itself over and over and over again. So the first thing I did was I created a comments component. And as you can see, this comments component is pretty basic. All I'm really doing here is creating the header and sort of the div for the comments to live. So you can see here I have this sort of like box. That's what comes from this component. I have the title that says comments, and I have the amount of comments that comes inside of it. So all of that comes from this sort of top level comments component. And then the actual recursive component I'm going to be using is called comment. I might rename that later. It's sort of confusing since I have comments and comment. I might call the first one like comment container or something, and then the actual comment, just keep it at comment or post. So let's go ahead and see what it looks like in here. You can see that I'm destructuring first all the data that I would want to use. I've commented out the ones I'm not using yet because all I've done is created the functionality for this component. I haven't styled it yet, so I haven't used like the created date or the downvote or upvote count and stuff like that. But then if we get into the actual HTML side of things, the JSX, you can see that all we're really doing is just displaying the comment the way we want to. So I have some styles here for the root, which just applies things like a bit of margin, which we'll talk about in a second because it uses sort of indentation, as well as just the border around it. And if you're not familiar with Mature UI, all of these stylings are sort of JSS style. Through something called Mature UI, which is a UI library, which I highly recommend. But all we're really doing is we're just creating the component div. Then we're just displaying, for example, the thumbnail of the person's profile picture, their name, and then below it, we just have their actual comment. And that's pretty much all there is to the basic bare bones structure of the comment itself. And I like doing things in sort of parts where I create the functionality and just have a very simplistic version of it first before I go ahead and style everything and make it more complex. So the next part after that is all I'm doing is I'm checking to see, number one, whether or not the comments array exists, or the replies, sorry. And then if the replies array exists and the length is greater than 0, which means we have some replies to that comment, then all I'm going to do is I'm going to map through them, pretty much loop through all the comments, and I'm just going to call recursively this same component and pass in all the data so that it can get rendered in the same way. Now, the only other piece to this is I also pass in an indentation prop. And the reason I do this is because, as you see on this site that I'm sort of copying, every time there's a reply, it sort of gets indented to the right, so it's easy to tell that it's a reply. So what I decided to do was, in the initial comment component for all the top level comments, all the top level post comments that I loop through, I set an indentation of 0. And this is just a custom prop. It's not actually going to do anything without me making it do something. But where I do use it is in the stylings. I just apply a margin left depending on how much the indentation is from the props. So for all the top level comments where the indentation is 0, it's going to apply a 0 multiplied by 18, which is 0, pixel margin to the left, which is why on these top level comments you don't see any margin to the left. But as soon as our top level components call all of their replies, we pass in whatever the parent's indentation was. In the first case, it'll be 0 plus 1, which is 1. So for everything under a top level component, it will have an indentation of 1 multiplied by 18 pixels, which is just 18 pixels. Then for those comments, all of their replies will be passing in an indentation of 1 plus 1, which is 2. And that's how you get a further indentation of, whatever 18 times 2 is, which is 36. And that's sort of how it works. And then it just sort of renders it in order because I'm calling it in order. I'm mapping it from all the top level comments downwards. So we can see it'll be a top level comment, the reply, the reply, the reply, and then it'll go up one level, back up the recursion tree to another reply to the top level comment, and then a reply to that, and then another top level comment. And I thought this was just a cool example. Something cool we can also do with this, for example, is if we wanted to create an easy way to hide the children responses to the thread. Sort of like how you can do here, how you can click this and it'll hide some of the children. You can also do the same thing on Reddit. So what you can do pretty much is I'm going to just create a state variable called like children hidden, set children hidden. And this is just going to be a very basic use state hook from React, and I'm going to default it to false. We're going to go ahead and make sure we import that from React. So if you're not familiar with the use state hook, it allows you to just keep state in your React component. So this variable, children hidden, is going to be unique to every instance of the comment component. So if this is true for this top level component, it doesn't necessarily also have to be true for the component below it. So I can go ahead and also say that in this sort of conditional checking where I decide whether or not I want to actually render any of the children comment, I can also just make it dependent on whether or not the children hidden is false. So all I have to do is add the additional condition that if children hidden is not true, then we can go ahead and make the replies. And then the next thing we need is just a button that will call set children hidden. So for example, I can just go ahead and create just a very basic button. In the future, I'm probably going to be switching this over to the Material UI's like expand less and expand more icons, and just have it so that when I click expand less, or the expand more one, it'll go ahead and show the children if they were hidden, and if I click expand less, it'll hide the children. But for now, I'm just going to test the functionality with a very basic button, and I'm going to make this, like let's say if children hidden, then I'm going to say like show child posts. Otherwise, I'm going to say something like hide child post. And of course, like I said, all of this I'm going to redo. I just want to test the functionality of it first. Very basic functionality. We can go ahead and give it like an alt, like hide children, or toggle children. Alts aren't really that like important. I just do it because of the ESLint errors. Then we can go ahead and give it an onClick handler. And for this onClick, all I'm going to do is set, for example, call the set children hidden. I'm going to pass in the current state and just make it not the current state. Okay. So now if we go ahead and refresh this, we can come down and see that the button is there. And if I click hide child posts, it'll just hide them. And if I click show them, it'll re-toggle them. So of course, I'm going to style this in like a much nicer way and not obviously have it be a button. It's going to probably be something similar to this or something similar to how Reddit does it. But yeah, that's just an example of recursive React components. I know you guys said you wanted to see some real life examples of all these things in actions. And this was an easy one, so I figured I'd go ahead and give it a shot. Thanks for watching, and I'll try to post a bit more videos like this in the future. So if you like this, subscribe, hit your notifications, and learn some cool things about React. It really helps with the channel if you leave a comment, and I'll try my best to respond to them. And I'll see you guys in the next video.